Hey guys, welcome back to the Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review. Today's game up the tip-up is called Dragon Canyon. Dragon Canyon is for 2 to 5 players, plays about 10 and up, and approximately 35 to 45 minutes to play the game. In Dragon Canyon, you're going to be playing with your own specific deck of cards, and you'll be venturing into the Dragon Canyon, in which you're going to be trying to place down all your different adventurers, as well as trying to make that dragon move and mess around with other people's adventurers, and everybody else is trying to do the same thing. Every time you place an adventure on one of the specific tiles of the canyon, you're going to be able to do an action or gain something or do something interesting to the board. Now your objective is obviously to collect certain amounts of tokens, and you can get bones and meat and rock and wood, and at the end of your turn you'll be able to purchase certain things like ravines or little huts and other things like that. And if you're able to acquire a certain amount of the different towns or whatever, that will end the game at a certain point, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game is the winner of Dragon Canyon. Let me go ahead and show you how it's played. So here we have Dragon Canyon in all its glory. And it's going to start off with giving you a beautiful little standee for a dragon, as well as town pieces here, which you'll be purchasing throughout the game, and victory points you can gain from defeating other people's minions. You're also going to be getting different Dragon Canyon decks for each and every player, as well as dragon boards, so these guys here, and represented based on the colors here. Every single deck is going to have the same exact type of monsters with a different color, the amount of damage they do, as well as the resource they provide, and finally the text that has certain abilities and stuff like that for them. You're also going to get a rule book. The whole game is in Japanese here, but it's going to be translated into English for you. You get 2 die, as well as this little board here, which actually lets you go ahead and put the pieces here, just so you're able to see where to buy them and what they do in English, as well as 16 unique tiles that are going to have not only the different art on them, but also what they produce for you, as well as there's guard towers, there's dragon tiles, and that other good stuff. And finally, you're going to get a bunch of tokens. There's bone, meat, rock, and wood. Okay, so now let's get into the game and how the turns work. Now, as you can see here, you've got all the different types of training ground, cave relief, tribal village, and cave palace. You'll be purchasing these throughout the game. And if any of these stacks run out in a 2 to 3 player game, it's over and you score. In a 4 or 5 player game, you remove 2 stacks, and at that point, it's over and you score. Also over here, you have the loot, which is if ever an attacker wins a fight, it's going to get this, and it's going to count towards 3 points towards total victory. Every player's got their deck of cards ready, as well as a die to be used. I'm going to use this as the first player marker so I don't get confused. You've got your token setups and your board here, as well as your dragon ready to go. Now, the turns are fairly simple. The first thing you're going to do is take the deck of cards you have, and you get to look through them, right? And what does it say? Each player's turn consists of the following actions. Okay, well, the first thing is stockpile. Well, as you look in your stockpile, you're going to want these things here, and you're going to gain them by putting cards on the board here. Now, at the beginning of your turn, if you have any of these resources in your caravan, you can move them down to your stockpile. The first turn of the game, we ignore this though, because we don't have any. So the first thing we're going to be doing is journeying. And journeying is simple. You take any of the cards in your hand, and there's a plethora of them, and they all have different abilities that affect other cards, and every single deck is the same. And you're going to take that card, and you're going to put that card down on the board. After you do that, the next thing is going to happen, which is the adventuring mode, which is where you flip over a card or cards to do damage or do abilities, and that can affect any adjacent card. However, you can't do it with a card you just placed, and it doesn't matter anyway because blue doesn't have anything on the board to do or to defend against. The next is the harvest step, which is going to harvest all of the different card symbols or the space symbols that your cards are on. So here is the only card on the board, and this is the space, so he's going to get 1 meat, and he's going to put it in his caravan. Remember, on next turn, during his stockpile phase, he's going to bring that down to the stockpile. After that, you're going to go to the claim phase, which is simply being able to purchase any of these things if you can, and it tells you how much it costs at the top here, as well as when you purchase more than one of them, how many points you're going to gain, as well as here, this cave relief is going to tell you what else you gain, what other bonuses you gain for purchasing that. After you're done, the next player is going to go ahead and take their turn by simply going ahead and starting with the stockpile, nothing, the journey, taking one of his cards and putting it down. Then the adventure mode, he can't do that. And the harvest, he's going to get 1 piece of wood, and he's going to put it in his caravan. And finally, the claim, which he can't do either. The next phase of the game, we continue. Let's go ahead and choose another one. How about we'll take this archer and we'll put it somewhere. We will put it here on the piece of wood. Perfect. And then we're going to go down. So actually, before we even did that, we actually have to move the caravan down to the stockpile. Don't forget that stockpile step. It's pretty important. So this is where you, because you can't purchase anything unless you have stuff in your stockpile. In your caravan, it doesn't do any good for you. It's only purchase. You're only able to purchase buildings when you have the mats in your stockpile. Then we go ahead and do the journey, and then we can do the adventure mode. So I can go ahead and attack with this guy by flipping this over. Now this has an ability, so I could do that instead if I wanted, which lets me flip any face down enemy face up, and then I gain their resources. So if I wanted to, I could do this ability. Ooh, it's a Dragon Slayer. And I get to choose any of the resources because that's what's available. And red will go ahead and pick a piece of wood. So I gain that. However, if this card didn't have this ability, or I didn't want to do that, if I wanted to attack instead, I could have flipped this guy up and then attacked this guy here, and in which case red and blue would roll 5 and a 4. You would combine the total numbers here, 4 and a 1, which is 5, 6 and a 5, which is 11, and then this guy would have died. If I was the attacker and I had won, I would gain one of these little point cards here, but that wasn't the case, in which case it would not be very good for me to have done that anyway because I have such a very low attack. So using this ability is very beneficial. The Dragon Slayer over here is immune to dragon effects, which is really cool as well. So that being said, that's what happens. This guy doesn't flip down until his next turn, but at the end of this guy's turn, he does flip down. So we've moved past the adventure. We're going to do the harvest step. In the harvest phase, you can only collect for face down monsters. So this next turn for this blue player, he's not going to get anything, and neither will the canine get anything. But luckily, he was able to pull something from the Dragon Slayer, so it didn't matter. So he's going to be able to gain 1 piece of wood. He takes the piece of wood and he puts it in the caravan. Then after that, he's going to go ahead and try and claim, which he can't, he still doesn't have money, and then he flips over his cards. And it continues going on from there. Now remember, whenever you have a certain amount of stuff in your caravan, at some point you're going to be able to purchase things. This would obviously need another piece of meat. You could go ahead and pick something up. These guys over here, let's see what they do. The training ground, as soon as you purchase this card, you can randomly discard a force card from, you can randomly discard and force an opponent to discard a card from their hand. This one over here gates, let's see, during final scoring, the value of each cave relief is determined by how many constructions you have built total. That's really good as well. These guys give you a bonus as well. And as soon as you purchase this, you can take a card from, and force your opponent, okay, so you can take a card from the discard pile and put it back into your hand. This one gives you even more points. And then this one is obviously when you win a fight, you can take one of these guys here, but only when you're attacking, right? And you're going to be doing that. Also, the dragon here, whenever somebody plays a card on a dragon space, so this next player could do this, he can then place this on another space, and it will actually lock down that space, and you're going to get the resource that this guy has indicated. Whenever you're fighting and you have somebody discard a card from their hand, you're actually getting the resource from that as well when you're battling. And the game is just going to continue from there as people purchase these different items or these different locations, and they're going to be putting them down in front of them. And they're going to be scoring additional points as they do so. And if the entire deck runs out, or at least one of the decks runs out, that's when the game would be over and scoring would begin. And scoring is very simple. Depending on what you have, like these guys here, this guy would actually get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 points here. And then it's because he has 5 of these guys here, he'd get 40, and I think he'd get also 10, really, or 5, which is really strong. 40 and 5, and plus that, so you'd add all that up together. And this guy here would only have 10 points, but if he had 2 more of these guys, he'd have an extra 20. And so that's kind of the idea how it works. You would add up any of these points that you had, and that'd be the winner, whoever had the total amount of points there. I want to talk about the cards as well. There's a lot of unique things with these guys. Some of them, like the Tribal Witch Doctor, he can actually, every card that you lost that goes to the discard pile, he can let you put those cards back into your hand so that you can actually use them again at some point. If you ever have no cards in your hand and they're all in the discard, then you can actually bring them back. The Tribal Mage is pretty cool too. It can blink if somebody tries to fight him by flipping over. The Tribal Mage can go ahead and blink somewhere else on the other side of the field. However, if it's the Wyvern Archer, then that actually means that the Tribal Mage cannot blink and they're going to do battle. That, and I think, what else does it say? Attacked power increased to 7 points when engaging the Tribal Mage. So it actually goes to 7 from 4. That's really powerful. There's other things like there's the Ancient Dragon Knight. Leap attack, and tells you what it does. It actually gives you an extra +2 on certain enemies. The Ancient Wood Assassin, he actually can beat the Dragon Slayer because he turns into a 10 from a 2. There's tons of great cards in here that are going to be, and they're all kind of like balancing. One is better than another, but that one is better than that one, and so on and so forth. So you're going to be using these cards and discarding them and bringing them back into play until somebody has removed, or everybody has removed, at least 1 or 2 of these decks, depending on the number of players, from the game. Then you tally up your points, and that's the winner of the game, Dragon Canyon. On another note, too, before you go to the harvest phase, you have to check to see if a harvest festival has enacted. And let's say that it is Red's turn here, and Red is going to place his guy right here. Whenever you place in a row like this, in any single 4-column, you're going to actually trigger the harvest festival before the harvest, in which case all of the units in that row are going to flip over, and everybody is going to get the different resources indicated on their guy, as well as on the tiles there. So Red here would get any one resource he wanted, maybe a rock. He'd get 2 meat, and then he would get 2 pieces of wood, and he'd put them in his caravan. Blue over here would get 1 rock and 1 piece of wood. Then after that, all the cards here are going to be discarded, just like this. And then the next phase would be the harvest, and that would take place, and turn would progress as normal. Also, another couple caveats to let you know. Whenever you place 4 diagonally, it works the same way. The Harvest Festival will still trigger even if you're going across that way, up, down, left, right. It doesn't matter. If it's 4 in a row, that will trigger the Harvest Festival, and that is when you're going to actually gain the different resources on the tile as well as your cards, and then all those cards will get discarded. Also to note too, yes, whenever you discard your entire hand or you have no cards in hand, you're going to take your discard pile and put it into your hand, as well as there's another character in the game that's actually going to let you pull from your discard and put it into your hand as well. Every card kind of has its own counter, and every card is better than another card. And the canine's really cool too, because it has the ability to just take different resources from different units, and also kind of force them to be frozen. Now also this dragon too is very, very powerful because it pushes another character into place and gets frozen, and then you can take resources from them and they get kind of locked until either the festival happens or they manage to find a way to get the dragon off and put onto somewhere else. So let me tell you what I think about the game. First of all, art is great. Feels great, flows great, super easy to explain, super easy to play. This is definitely one of those kid-style games, but it plays really well with a family as well. I think if anybody's interested in like a style of area control, resource management kind of thing, this is definitely one of those gateway games that gets kids involved, and definitely an easy one to teach them, as well as really fun, friendly, and really beautifully fantasy-oriented. I was very, very surprised with the art in this game, the style of the characters, all the different components, really high quality, really nice. It kind of reminds me of the game Unearthed a little bit, because you're collecting, instead of monuments, you're collecting these landmarks and stuff, and you're getting points as you collect them, and after you run out to a certain extent, then you're going to score the game. The scoring is really easy, and the points kind of add up in a nice little way where everything flows together. You always feel like you have an opportunity to win the game, and even this extra dice roll will make you feel like you have that extra bonus of winning. However, that's also a little bit of the downside too, is even if you have the better character and you have the best strategy in the world, sometimes the other guy is going to roll a 6 and you're going to roll a 1, and they're going to beat you even if they have a 2 and you have a 6. So that can just end up happening. Nevertheless, though, a very stunningly beautiful game. Really, really fun. It's interesting, too, because when we talked about this game after we had played it, it's like, well, if I were to rate it on just a basic gamer level, it'd probably be like a 7 or an 8 solid, like just a fun game that, you know, I could see anybody just picking up and wanting to play. But if you're talking about those, like, parents that want to get their kids into gaming, or just a family game night or whatever, this thing almost is like 9, 9.5, even a 10 for most people. Really, really fun. Definitely a game I'm going to be bringing to like group camps and that kind of stuff, youth group and whatnot. Really, really fun Dragon Canyon. Love it. Beautiful. Definitely check it out.